And what's going on, everybody? This is your boy, Scotty by Nature TV, and we're here for our third episode of One on One. Okay, One on One is where I sit down with some of my favorite content creators and probably some of your favorite content creators, and where we have a conversation and you get to know this person a little bit better than you probably did. You get to learn new things about this person, just all of those things. Okay, and the person that I'm here with this week is actually one of my favorite content creators. I think I always refer to him as one of my non-problematic faves because I have a lot of favorites that are definitely problematic, but he is one of the few that is not problematic. Okay, he does great commentary on politics. He does great commentary on music, which is one of the things that drew me to his platform. And I've been wanting to do a video with him for quite some time now, and I was very surprised that he obliged. But the thing about it is, we kind of already knew each other anyway, but we'll talk about that when he get up here. But ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome my guest for tonight, Mr. Calvin Michaels.
Hey,
What's
folks.
going on? What's going on?
Happy Friday.
Yes, I'm glad that it's Friday, but it ain't like it's Friday for me because I still got to work this weekend. So
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, it's life. Life is life.
now, what I mentioned at the very beginning was that we semi indirectly know each other, and it's so funny because would you like to tell it?
Yeah, so
Okay.
and I was telling this to somebody else the other day. So many people from a certain kind of window of YouTube, we all kind of indirectly know each other, either because all of us used to post on the same music forums or
Yes.
some kind of musical space. So Scotty, I know indirectly from the Brandy forums. We never
Right.
knew each other, but kind of knew of each other. And it was funny because I think when I was watching the Scorpion episode, I was like, I know him too, because he's the big Janet fan, just like myself. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember I think he had just started his YouTube channel, and I feel bad because it's a horrible way to remember somebody. But he was doing these updates about the Rock With You tour because it was coming, and I had just saw
Yeah.
two of the shows, and then his got canceled, and so he did this YouTube video just going in on Janet. He was pissed. I felt so bad because it was so funny, but I was like, I know what that feels like because there's nothing worse than like when your show gets canceled. So I was like, wait, I know him too. And so it's kind of interesting because like a lot of folks from that window who started their channels around like 2010, 11, 2012, maybe 13, all of us somewhat kind of know of each other or have been in some other space, whether it was music forums. The start, like the guy from That Grape Juice, like I think they used to be on
Yeah.
the forums too. So it's
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's because see, like I was telling him backstage before we came up here, I was like, because he was the one who brought up the fact that we kind of knew each other. And I said, you know what? I thought so. Because I said I saw that name and I was like, and we've been following each other on Twitter for years too. So I was just like, I think we do. I assumed it had something to do with the Brandy board. I knew it was something like that. So I was just like, okay, I'm glad that we got that confirmation that we kind of already knew each other and stuff like that. But we're gonna get into like all the musical stuff and things like that in a second. But we're gonna start it off with you. So we're gonna start in the past. So where are you from, first of all?
So I'm originally from Spanaway, Washington, which is like this small town. It's like a suburb of Tacoma, Washington. So maybe 20 minutes from Tacoma, 45, 50 minutes from Seattle. And then after I went to Howard, I just never left DC. So DC's been home since '06, minus like 1 year when I went home for a little bit.
Okay, so I don't know many people. I don't know anybody from
You're
Washington.
not going to.
So yeah.
No, I mean we're out there, but a lot of, if you're talking like Black families in Washington State, a lot of us are not rooted there. All of us have some kind of roots either in the Midwest or in the South, and a lot of Black families that moved to a place like Washington either ended up there because of the military, or if you're talking 70s, 80s, 90s, it would have been Boeing, Microsoft, and later down the line it would turn into like Amazon, Starbucks, Nordstrom, because a lot of them have corporate offices there. So a lot of us are only 1 or 2 generations rooted there. So my family is rooted in Georgia.
Okay, so did you grow up in Washington or did you grow up in Georgia? Like,
So my parents were military, so we kind of
okay.
bounced a lot, but the main places would have been Washington and then Savannah, Georgia for all the summers and holidays. And I actually lived there for about a year and a half as a toddler because my parents got sent to Korea, like both of them, but they were actually stationed at the DMZ and you couldn't bring families there because that's the border with North Korea, South Korea. And so
Mhm.
I lived in Savannah with my grandma and my aunts until I was 3.
So, what was life like in Washington? Because, like I said, I don't know nobody from Washington, so it's like I be wondering. Because I think I'm weird in a sense. Because I'll be up in the wee hours in the morning, like looking up places like Washington and Montana and stuff like that. Because I don't know nobody from those places, so it's crazy that you're up here and you come from Washington. Well, you lived in Washington,
Yeah.
you
So
know.
I mean, it's a unique experience. I will say, I mean, I loved it growing up. I would never go back now, but I had a great childhood living there. If you're into Mother Nature, all that kind of stuff, it's fun. Like we did fishing. I used to any kind of random animal I had in a cage somewhere. I was collecting bullfrogs, and one time I caught a crow and had the
Hmm.
crow in the garage. Mom was like, "No, that's not happening. I gotta go." So it's great for like Mother Nature, the scenery. It used to be a lot more affordable. It's gotten really expensive now. The only beef I had was that because we were a military family and we got to live in other places, because I lived in Europe for some years as well. Once you get a taste of something different, it's hard to sometimes want to go back home. And like with Spanaway, because I think it's not really Seattle. Like I think if I would have grown up in Seattle, I would probably be fine still living in that area. But Spanaway, I always say if you watch Roseanne, before she started tripping. The town she's in on the show is kind of like what Spanaway was, kind of like a working class military suburb, really quiet. We didn't have a downtown because we weren't a real city.
Hmm.
It was well, Walmart came in middle school, but before Walmart, it was this one street with a Mexican restaurant, a Dairy Queen, the bank, and Marketplace, and that was the town. So
Oh
it
my God.
definitely developed a whole lot more. But I mean, I haven't lived there since in years. So, but it was cool. Culturally, it's different because you do sometimes end up being the speck of pepper in a bowl of salt. Sometimes you might be the only black kid in the class, but there still is a black collective that's out there. It's just not a massive one.
So, would you say Washington is kind of like a because since you described it like being a one pepper in a bowl of salt, would you say it's kind of like you like a Utah? Because that's another place where it's a lot of salt, but not a lot of.
Um, I will say Washington is still actually a pretty diverse state, at least on the western half. So there's a really, really huge Pacific Islander population. Like my best friend growing up was this Samoan kid, Brian. There was a really big Southeast Asian population. There's a pretty big Ethiopian population in the Seattle metro area. Uh,
Hmm.
so you still had a good mix. Like there were still places. So if I'm not gonna say I was like one of those kids who were like, oh, I didn't grow up around black folks, so I can't relate to them, because that wasn't my experience. Because you still had the barbershop, you still had church, you
Right.
still had different establishments and everything like that. So we were around. Utah's a little less diverse and a bit more rural. Um,
Hmm.
Seattle Metro still has a lot going on, so it's still kind of an exciting place. But it's kind of like once you're up there, you're up there, because the next closest city that has any kind of weight to it is Portland, which to me has always been like diet Seattle. And then after that, there's nothing till you hit California, pretty much the Bay Area. So driving to like Oakland from Seattle is like a 10, 11 hour drive. So yeah, you're out there kind of isolated as in comparison to the East Coast, where you got New York right there, Philly, Baltimore, DC, all these places you can get to in 2 or 3 hours. So it's different, but it wasn't too bad of an experience.
It sounds like Washington is a more diverse or updated version of Mississippi because that's where I'm from. So, your childhood sounds a little bit different from mine. Uh, where I'm from, I know when I was growing up, because it's not like this now, but when I was growing up, where I'm from, we had one high school, two elementary schools, and one middle school. So everybody knew everybody. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody know who everybody mamas is. Everybody know who everybody husband, wife is, who they side pieces. Everybody know everybody. So that's how it was when I was growing up.
Which
But
part of Mississippi?
I live in Canton. Canton is a very small town. It's like 30 minutes out from Jackson. So I'm basically in the metro part of Jackson. So most people, when they like, say for instance, I'm out with my friends in another city and they'll ask, oh, where are you from? They'll say Jackson.
Mhm.
They'll never say we're from Canton because don't nobody know what that is. But they'll say, oh, well, we're from Jackson. I'll be like, we are not from
I mean,
Jackson.
I got some paternal side on it. Like my dad's side is rooted in Utica and Vicksburg, Mississippi. So
Okay, because
might be
Utica.
cousins.
That's funny. That's funny now. Well, Utica was not that far from where I went to college at, because I went to college in Raymond. So Raymond, Utica is right up the street from Raymond, pretty much.
Okay.
So that's. But I'm never surprised when I hear about people that's far, that grew up far out, that got family in Mississippi. I think some of everybody probably got family in Mississippi and they don't know. You know.
Right.
Okay, so you said you went to Howard. So, what was that experience like, and what made you want to go to Howard? And what did you major into?
Lord. I didn't care for the first year because it took me a minute to find my footing, find my tribe. So the first year, actually, I hated. I wanted to go home so bad, but I didn't want to go home because
Right.
I'm not going back to Spanaway. And my parents were not supportive of Howard. They didn't like that because they're like, you got all these schools right here. You got University of Washington. You can go to school down the street. And I was like, no, I want to go to the East Coast. And so I suffered through the first year. But no, when I got in there, Hurricane Katrina had just happened, and so I didn't like what I saw in response to how the U.S. government responded. Right, folks sitting on the roofs and stuff. So I was like, man, I want to be a politician. I'm going to go and save the world. So I initially majored as a political science major, and then I always liked all the arts and music and all that other stuff. And I started realizing, like, okay, I kind of want to do that a bit more because you walk past, like, Howard has that really good fine art school, and you see all the fine art students and the musicians just having powwows and having the time of their life. Meanwhile, I'm in like some studying the symbolic convergence theory. I was like, this is boring, man. And so I ended up switching my major to communications because at that point I was like, I want to go into A&R in music. So I was like, let me get a degree that's somewhat closer to that. So it's going to either be A&R or journalism. So I was like, let me get a communications degree. But no, it was a really great experience once I found my footing, found my tribe. Lots of lifelong friends. Even today, we're all still close. I love that my closest friends are still in the area, so we can all still like chop it up and do things. But it was definitely a learning experience. You learn about yourself. Because again, I think for anybody who goes to college, period, you're the cream of the crop in your hometown. And so you get to college thinking you're going to be the cream of the crop on that campus.
And you are not.
You and everybody else. I remember even like, because I was also a dancer at one point. I did a lot of dance. And I remember when I didn't make the dance team, I was like, are you serious? Like, I'm literally getting paid on the other side of the coast to teach. What you mean I can't make y'all team? So,
right.
Yeah, it was cool. It was a good 4 years.
It's so crazy how we got so much shit in common. Because when I was, because, I didn't graduate. However, when I was in college, I went to college for mass comm and journalism because number one, I love music, and number two, I love to run my mouth. So I was saying, okay, maybe you could put the two together. Maybe I could be a news reporter, or maybe I could be a disc jockey or something, or maybe I could be on the radio because I love music and I love to give my opinion. So why not go to college and do that and get a radio show or something? Like that's the type of thing that I wanted to do when I went to college. But when you go, for me, I was around too many of my friends, and then I wasn't going to class. I was skipping, and ultimately I was like, okay, I'm done. So, that's what that was. So it's crazy how much we got in common when it comes down to like the way you grew up. You grew up in it's like country, so to speak, and I grew up in the deep South. And then you have roots in the deep South as well. And we went to college for some of the same things. So that makes sense. So you graduate from Howard and you stay in DC and you get into YouTube. So what made you want to get into YouTube? Was there any YouTubers that you would watch and you'll be like, oh, okay, I would want to do this? Because as I said before, the last person I did the one-on-one with was with the Scorpion Show, Kevin of the Scorpion Show. And he was definitely one of my biggest inspirations of wanting to do this. And I always credit him for being the person that made me want to do this. So was there did you watch a couple of people, or this was something that you fell into, or that's something that you always wanted to do?
So backtracking a tad bit. So I didn't have my stuff together when I graduated at Howard. And then my dad was sick at the same time. So I ended up actually having to go back home for about a year and a half back to Spanaway. And if you've had the experience of moving to like a big city and, you've been running the streets all night and then you go back to home, quiet, subtle town. I still had the same bunk bed from when I was 12. I'm like, what am I doing here? But initially, my YouTube channel, I never intended on having a channel. I always had one. Like, if you go to my page, it says like made in '05, but I didn't start blogging, I think, till like 2010. But I initially, because I was teaching dance and the money that I was making from dance was like kind of paying for like my food and stuff in college, I used to teach different dance troops and competition teams. And so once Howard really kicked in, because a lot of the teams I was teaching was still in Washington State, I couldn't just keep flying back and forth because that cost money. I mean, we had a partnership with Alaska Airlines, but there were some times where there was no money for it. So I started putting the lectures on the YouTube channel. It's like unlisted links, and then you'd send them to the respective teams that you taught. And so so that's how the channel kind of initially started. And then when I got back to it, when I was still at home, because I was unemployed, trying to figure out life and everything, I randomly got into comedy. And so I started doing stand-up comedy and doing all these different shows.
Oh, wow.
It was actually the outlet for the promotion for my show. So anytime I was trying to because the comedy world is very competitive too. Like, you really have your legs in the open mic circuit before you start getting features. And so before I started getting features, I have all the open mic shows recorded. And then if you go to some club and they're like, oh, well, who are you? You just send them a link to the video like, this is me. So then that happened. Long story short, some random woman named Bethany Storrell, this white lady in Vancouver, Washington, she was on the news because she claimed she was attacked by a black woman who threw acid on her face. And like, what? And then it turned out none of it happened. She actually did it to herself and made it up. And I think for some reason it just triggered something to me. I was like, somebody need to hear how I feel, because this is too much to type in.
Right.
And because again, Vancouver, Washington is even more like rural than Spanaway. There might be 3 black people there. So I was just thinking, like, what must it be like to be a black woman in Vancouver, Washington, while everybody's looking for an alleged black woman who done threw acid on somebody's face? So that kind of triggered my first video, and I didn't think it was going to do anything. And it got like 1,000 views. So, when you don't even have a channel, 1,000 views sounds like 2 million. So I was like, oh, okay.
Right. That is very true.
And I didn't plan on doing any other videos. And then I saw the Tyler Clementi story. And that was like the student that got outed by the roommate who had recorded him privately. And then the video, I guess, had gone viral. So the student Tyler went and jumped off the bridge. So I was like, I got something to say about that too. And then that one got more views. And then I think the next video was something about guns or something. And so I never planned for YouTube to become what it became. It was just kind of like a hobby. I honestly didn't take it seriously till 2017. So there weren't really any YouTubers I was watching. And it's not to try to sound cocky, like, oh, no. But I really wasn't on YouTube like that. As far as watching other people until the last few years, I started okay, some of these people are pretty cool. So, you kind of start following and seeing what everybody's doing. And then I think, I don't know who it was, but I saw somebody do an award show review. And I think that's kind of what segued me into more music content. We can't remember what channel it was, but it was one of these channels that did a review. I just remember it was a 2011 Billboard Music Awards, because that was the year Beyonce had did remember she had the thing with all the cool screens and the graphics. Somebody did it, and I was like, oh, I can do that too. So so that's kind of how YouTube kind of became a thing.
It normally starts off like that, though. Like, you start off, you put out a video, it's like, okay, I put out a video here and there, whatever. It don't never be that serious. But then after a while, the more stuff happens and you have a lot of opinions about it and you just want to get it out, it becomes that. Because I know when I first started, on the 27th, it's going to make 13 years since I started. So when I first started, I was doing reviews about Basketball Wives and Real Housewives season 3. So that was a long time ago. Season 3, Brandy and Ray J show, and What Chili Wants. Y'all can tell that's old, because Brandy and Ray J show is not here no more, and neither is What Chili Wants. We ain't heard nothing about them shows in years. So that's what I was reviewing. And then the more I continued to do it, one of those videos, like you said, one of my first videos got 1,000 views. I said, oh, they like me, not realizing, to the bigger YouTuber, 1,000 really ain't that much to them. But to me at that time, it was everything. So I was just like, oh, okay. And then I kept it going. So that's normally how it goes. And it becomes like it's a hobby, but then it becomes something bigger than what you thought it was, because you never know who's watching. So, is that how you built your platform, off of politics and music? Like, what made you want to get into the politic and music thing on here?
I mean, I already was pretty, because technically that Bethany Storrell video was kind of like kicking the door and straight with the politics. But
Right.
I think over time, especially because I did a lot of community work, it's hard to sometimes just sit on how you feel when you're constantly seeing a lot of nonsense and foolery. And so I just kind of started just blogging about whatever was coming to my mind at that point, because I was still living at home for like a year before I moved back to DC. So I had all the time in the world to sit with my thoughts. And yes, I think politics just gradually became, because I will say I think my channel is more political than entertainment at this point. But I think years when I first started ago, it was the other way around. It was more so entertainment, and you shake the table a little bit politically. But then, just so much has gone down in like the last 10 years. It's like, man. So, and I think that's when I started getting kind of like the core following, and people started to, I guess, respect what it was I did. And I don't know. There's so much that I could say, but I'm trying to remember this is your platform. I ain't trying to take it over and then send over here to fight you. But
this is about this is about getting to know you, so you can say
on my channel. So yeah, but because there's just been so many crazy things that take place, it started getting harder to do all the fun entertainment stuff. So I started just gradually shifting over a bit more political, and then like a lot of things in regard to just like Black politics in general. But I do enjoy talking. Honestly, my favorite videos to do are the more entertainment related ones, because they're not as like this stressful to talk about and cover. And it gets to a point where, you can probably relate, but once you start having that following, people that really admire what you do start sending you suggestions on what to talk about.
Yes, they do.
I always get a lot of the DMs where, they didn't send me a picture of somebody's head cut off. Like, hey, you need to do a story on this because the police cut this person's head off. And you're like,
right.
All right, man. Like, okay. So, it's just kind of fallen into a bunch of spaces, but I'm not complaining. I enjoy doing it, but I take a lot of breaks too, just for my own peace of mind, because covering so much heavy stuff I've seen a lot of people kind of lose their minds. I ain't trying to be one of them. So, you got to protect your mind as well.
Okay. So my next question is, because it's going to segue into something else that I'm going to say. Being that your platform is built mostly now on politics and stuff like that, has there ever been I think you just said you got like a core fan base based off of those politics, based off your political views, so to speak.
Right.
Has there ever been a time where you wanted to continue to do your politic content, but your political content, I'm sorry, but kind of swerve into other waters, like go into something else, like more so into your entertainment and your music content, but still keep your political content at the same time?
Well, I think I kind of balance it all. Okay, I think I kind of balance it pretty well, because honestly, like I will say, I think what has worked with the channel is that it's not just political. So we're going to cover whatever stupid Congress is doing at the moment and whatever loony president is in office and what they're messing up. But, whether it's like I haven't done one in a minute, but like my in the news segments, or even when we do the lives, some of the commentary is political, some of it's entertainment related, some of it's just life. That kind of inspired my podcast, because people kept saying, can you make a podcast? Can you make a podcast? But people actually wanted a podcast of what I was already doing. And I was like, well, it doesn't make sense to like do the same thing twice on two. That's going to be tiring. So if we're going to do a podcast, let's like switch it up. Because some folks were like, you're starting to scare us a little bit, because, maybe we subscribed and, years ago because you were funny, but every time we come on, you going off about something. And so that's how I started the podcast, which is, it's storytelling. It's called Comedically Hard-Headed. And all of that is just storytelling. It's kind of like a way where I can still do comedy without having to actually go on a stage. So I've kind of balanced it a bit. There's some things that people really like, some things people aren't crazy over, but I've noticed I have different pockets of following. Some people only specifically follow me for whatever's going on with politics or in entertainment. I might have 3 people checking for my music. But people love like the So What Happened series. Love that one.
Love it.
The R&B is dead. I've kind of retired it and transitioned it to a new thing called Music Talk. But a lot of people came specifically for that. So it mixes. I've always told, because one of my good friends had started a channel a while back. And I was saying, like, if you're going to start a channel, kind of like just be your authentic self and kind of talk about whatever you want to talk about. If you open a bunch of different lanes, you won't be locked into being kind of like a one-trick pony, meaning like if a certain trend dies out, you die with it. So I think that's kind of how at least I've run a channel, like kind of just jumping into a bit of everything.
Okay, so I asked that question because like I said, this is a conversation, not just an interview, but a
Yeah.
conversation. As a YouTuber, long as I've been doing YouTube, I've primarily been doing commentary on like reality TV. And then about 3 years ago, I started doing commentary on celebrity gossip and stuff. But now I'm at a place with it now where it's like, the celebrity gossip is cool, the reality TV is cool, but I want to dive more into like more music content because music is really where my heart is. Like, if you really want to be honest about it, most of these things that I get sent or be asked to talk about, the stuff that's on the neighborhood talking to Shade Room. If we really want to be completely honest, I don't be giving not two fucks about none of that stuff. And sometimes it shows on my videos because there have been people that have complained. I come to see the commentary and it'd be like, I'm probably am kind of selling them short because essentially I don't care about what I'm talking about. Like, I don't even care about it. You know what I'm saying? I'm just doing it for the sake of, entertaining my fan base and because that's what they want. But I'm in a headspace now where I don't want to just talk about that. Like, I feel like I shine more when I discuss music. Like, I was very excited about the Rap City documentary on BET. And then, because I didn't get the response that I wanted off that video, I took it down. But then, people were like, no, you should put it back up, whatever. And I put it back up and still didn't get the response that I wanted, but I left it up there. And I just didn't even bother covering the whole documentary anymore because I'm like, well, they don't want to watch that. Don't nobody really care to see that. So it's just like, should I just take the chance and do more music content like I really want to, or should I just stay in my lane? But as an Aquarius, I don't like to be boxed in either. Like, I like to do different things. So I might just have to bite that bullet and just do that. And then people will come if they can't, somebody will pick it up and it'll go somewhere.
Well, I mean, like, honestly, I don't think it hurts to add new avenues to any project you have going on with the channel. I don't think it's that bad because I mean I still have some videos like even the last one. So right now I've been in a battle with this is in my opinion been my least productive year on YouTube as far as pre-made content, but this has been my most productive as far as just doing lives. Like lives are easy because you can say your 2 cents and go to bed.
Right.
But I prefer releasing the pre-made videos because that's when I can really get into detail and have the visuals and all the other stuff. And so I've been trying to get a bit more back into the pre-made content because that's also really, at least for me, what brings in the subscribers. My lives are really just for the folks who already rock with me. So, but I know like the last one I just did, I was like, these views a little low on this one. Okay, I spent 2 days.
Yeah.
I watched this, but I think you might as well just keep it up because honestly, a lot of times some videos get legs much later. So when I first did So What Happened, nobody watched it. Like the first one I did was a TLC episode. And
that's the first one I saw.
Then it got demonetized. I was like, damn, because I didn't really understand all the rules with YouTube yet with like the visuals and how much stuff you could have. So it was automatically demonetized once it got uploaded. I'm like, well, ain't no money coming from that one. But nobody watched it for like 2 weeks. And then it finally got legs. And when I did the Brandy one, I remember the Brandy one said it like 3,000 or 4,000 views for like a month. I was like, because I was like, all right, this series is done. I'm not sitting here doing this crap all day. And then it got its own legs, and I don't know what it's at, maybe 60 or 70,000, something like that. And so by the time we finally got to like the Janet one, it was kind of like people anticipate it now. So I'm like, okay, and I've been getting cussed out because people have been waiting for the Mariah one for like 6 months. It's coming, y'all. I just got so much on my plate. So yeah, I mean, you just gotta stick with it. Even my R&B is Dead series never really caught on until years later. Like a lot of those episodes had 200 or 300 views on it for years. And then, I don't know, 2015, 2016, they got some legs. And then people started going back to the early ones because it's like I numbered the episodes. They're like, oh, he's on number 15. Let me go see what number 1 was about. And
right.
The whole series. And then I've also learned too, and I think you probably benefit from this as well, but like a lot of people also just watch because they enjoy you as a person. Like they don't support whatever you have as far as what you put out because they like just your energy, your personality as a whole. So like, that's also a demographic to also kind of keep into consideration. You're always gonna have supporters, even if it looks like nobody's watching or nobody's supporting that core fan base or that group of supporters. They're gonna ride with anything. So yeah, if you want to expound and branch out, because celebrity entertainment is hard. That's why I don't really do it, because you have to
Yeah.
constantly put out, because there's something happening every 5 minutes. I also take a lot of, like I said, I take a lot of breaks. Like you're a lot more consistent than I am, because you be having like 5 things on my and I'm like, damn, I know my subscribers must hate me, because it'd be 2 or 3 weeks before I show up. And then I
Trust
got
me, it wasn't like that before.
yeah.
I swear it wasn't. Like it didn't become that way until 3 years ago. That's why some people still think that I just started. And I've been doing this for a long time. But you
A lot
know,
of us got that late wave, because my channel didn't really
yeah.
until about 2018. I think I was under 5,000 subscribers until about 2016, 17-ish. And then
Mm-hmm.
2017, one of my there's another friend, he has a channel, God, was it Busy Blue. He does the reviews of
Big
Big Brother.
brother.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because we went to school together. But he was the one who was like, bro, like you could have like potential if you just actually make videos. Because at the time, I was probably doing like one video every month or two when I just
Mm-hmm.
felt like it. And he was like, yeah, if you could be more consistent, you might be all right. I was like, all right, I guess I could be a bit more intentional. Because at that point, I was kind of hanging up the YouTube channel, because I don't know if you had this same issue, but there were a bunch of folks who got demonetized in like 2011, 2012. And
Mm-hmm.
I was one of those people. I didn't do nothing. They just randomly demonetized a bunch of folks. And there was this class action lawsuit. And then Google had to undo what they did to a lot of folks. So then I randomly got remonetized in like mid 2017, because I was just doing the videos just because I wasn't getting any money or anything for like 5, 6 years. And so,
Same here.
yeah, he was like, yeah, you should try to be more consistent. I was like, I guess I could do a bit more. And so, I gradually, I think that's when I introduced like In the News and some other stuff. And then I think we started doing lives in 2018. And yeah, that's when the channel just skyrocketed. And then when 2020 went down and the world was just crazy, and you had the Ahmaud Arbery and the Amy Cooper and all these people just doing crazy stuff, I was starting to get like, 200,000-300,000 views on certain videos. I was like, oh shoot, okay, y'all are really watching me.
Exactly. Because like when 2020 happened and it was like the pandemic and stuff like that, my channel was mainly reality TV content. Like all I did was reviews. So when the pandemic came and most of the reality shows were shut down, I really didn't have nothing to talk about. So I'm like, I gotta find another lane, because if these reality shows are done right now, I'm not gonna have nothing to put out. So I gotta find another lane. So I went into doing like I started going into the gossip thing, because I never really cared about the blogs. So I went into that, and then one of the very first videos that I did, it took off, and I'm like, okay, I guess I can keep doing this, while keep my channel afloat for the time being. And then the reality shows gradually started coming back, but then I had more people flocking to me because I was doing both. So then I was like, but I don't want to keep, I don't want to keep talking about this stuff. Like, I talk about it because I do love reality TV. I just don't care about the blogs like that. Like, I don't care about these people, and I don't care about what they got going on at all. But I do it because that's what they want. So it was just like, for me, I'm like, okay. And then I remember when BET, they had their Murder Inc. Documentary.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I was so stoked about that. And I said, I'm gonna review this. I said, I don't know how they're gonna take. I don't know how they're gonna take to this, but I'm gonna review this. And surprisingly, they took to it. So then I'm like, okay. But then, I don't know, it's because a lot of people didn't know anything about the Rap City documentary or not. But when I tried to do it the very first video I did, it didn't go nowhere. It didn't even get 1,000 views or nothing like that. So I'm like, oh no, they don't want to watch that. But then, a lot of people were saying, you do good when you talk about me. Because honestly, Calvin, I'm gonna be honest. I love talking about music. I talk about music all day. Like I could do that all day. It's so many things I know about music. I have a whole lot of knowledge about music, especially R&B and hip hop music. I do, and I can do videos for days with that. So I was just saying that's why I want to kind of what word am I looking for? That's where I kind of want to go into. That's the next lane I want to go into, but not abandoning, the reality TV and gossip people that watch me, but kind of go into another lane and see how that works. Cause
You just do it all.
yeah, because
Yeah.
I'm happier when I'm talking about music, because I care about that. Like,
I think too, because I feel like for people who grow up in smaller towns where you don't have as much to do, all
mm-hmm,
you had to do was sit and watch music videos all day, or
mm-hmm.
everything that was on VH1 or BET and so on and so forth. And like for me personally, like when we lived in Europe, we didn't have cable, so for like 3 years, I didn't know what was happening with music until I got back to the United States, minus a handful of songs that blew up and crossed over internationally. So like when I got back to the US, I was in a mode to play catch up with music. So I used to just be glued to the TV. So yeah, I just feel like for certain folks, depending on how you grew up and what was, what you had to do. And I think that's how a lot of us ended up on like music forums and stuff.
Yes,
So
because
you
I
start
was on
connecting with
many.
people. I mean, I was on like Nas Daily and hiphop.com and Blurry and LiveJournal and Cyber TLC and like 2 or 3 Janet forums. And I was on all that stuff back in the day. So
I was on Brandy. I was on Monica. I was on Lil Kim. I was on a lot of them. A lot of them. Like so many of them. Okay, so many of them. So you could tell we were all into the music thing, and then a lot of us went on into YouTube. So let me ask you about the So What Happened series, because that's where I found your videos at. And like I said, I think that was the TLC one that I first saw, which I still watch. Like I still look at it. I listen to it in the car. Like that was like the best breakdown I had ever heard. So what made you want to do that?
I don't even know. Like it might have just been a random thought, like, I think I want to do that. I know it was during the pandemic because I know we were at home by then.
Yeah.
And I think I initially announced it. I had announced it to my channel and I hadn't even started on it. So at first I thought like, yeah, okay, hey, I want to see blah, 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 blah. I think there might have been a thread or something on Twitter and somebody said something I ain't like about the 3D album. And it was just absolutely terrible. And I'm like, no, that's not why I didn't do what I was like, actually, you know what? That could be a series, just kind of talking about projects. And then so I jumped into it, but I didn't realize it was going to take so long to make. I thought it could be a video I could do because it was supposed to just be like a 20-minute video. That's what.
Oh, no.
And as I started doing my notes and pieces, I was like, this is about to be like an hour long, man. And like they just got longer and longer and longer. But
right,
the purpose of it is more so as new generations come up, I try to give grace to like a lot of younger folks because there is kind of a dismissive approach to people who are younger when it comes to music. Because like y'all weren't there, just shut up, be quiet. And to be fair, they also didn't have the luxury of like a VH1 and all this programming that used to kind of keep us educated on music from before our time. So like, even though, we're technically millennials, if you were a kid that grew up on VH1 and TV, all that stuff, you knew about everything that was happening in music in the 70s and 80s because all the networks constantly kept all these people in your faces. And so even if you didn't grow up with the Bangles, you knew who they were.
Right.
And so I just purposely said, I want to do this series to kind of protect the legacy of a lot of these artists because there's a lot of narratives that are being put out there about these projects or these artists and stuff is wrong. And I really wanted people to also understand context. We're now kind of in this space where people will have really, really strong opinions, but the context doesn't align. And so their opinion will be loud, strong, and wrong. And then they'd be having platforms up here just saying anything. So that's kind of what started the So What Happened. And then I didn't think I was going to keep doing them, but people really like the TLC one. So everybody's like, oh, do this person, do that person. I was like, all right, cool. And so
I know I had a couple of people.
Brandy was next because I was like, I was tired of people because folks kept telling me, yeah, nobody bought Aphrodisiac because Brandy killed somebody. I'm like, that's not even the same time frame. What are y'all talking about?
That accident happened after Aphrodisiac.
And what's so funny, even on that video, there's some of those comments on the video. I'm like, the accident was years later, and y'all are okay. So I enjoy doing that because I used to always want to go into like TV production anyway. I used to always apply to TV, want to work for Unsung, but they would never reach back out. So I hope Unsung understands that y'all missing out. But that's just kind of one of the things I want to do. Plus, again, I wanted to kind of just revamp the channel, kind of add some new stuff because I felt like I was getting a little stagnant at the time. So I was like, let's just keep coming up with new stuff.
Maybe that's how I feel then.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe I'm just
like, I feel like YouTube is actually pretty short-lived unless you're somebody who catches on. A lot of people start channels and after a year or two, they burn out. Even some of the channels that actually have like real, like great tracking where they got 2 or 3 or 400,000 subscribers, a lot of them tap out because it's like YouTube is a lot of work. It's draining sometimes. Sometimes you don't feel like talking about certain things, but you got to keep staying out there because somebody else can come and take your place tomorrow.
They will.
And if you're not putting out enough stuff as frequently, then you kind of lose your placement in the algorithm. So it's kind of like it's a full-time job. You don't get no summer vacation or nothing like that.
Yeah, because it's an ongoing thing. Like even when I go out of town, I take my laptop with me and my mic with me now. Because even though I'm out here to enjoy myself, I still got to work.
Yeah.
So I still got to work.
Yeah.
Or sometimes I just do a whole bunch of videos before I leave and have them set to come out so I won't have to work as hard while I'm gone. And sometimes I don't have to work while I'm gone because I film everything I need to before I leave. But then there's some things I can't film until I get there. Like if there's a show that's coming on, I got to film it while I'm gone. I got to get up in the morning, watch the show on the laptop, get up, do the video, and then go out. It's still a job. And I like I said, I love YouTube, but I want to get to the point now. I'm at the point now where I want to talk about the things that I care about, and music is a thing that I really am passionate about because I'm a person that lived and breathed music. I used to be obsessed with looking at the Billboard charts growing up. I used to be obsessed with calling into the radio stations. I even had an account. What's the name of that damn website? It was called All Access. I had an account on All Access to see how the urban mainstream was on the radio or how many ads. I was into all of that stuff. I wrote
looking at the first week sales for everybody.
Right. I always knew the first week sales for people, want to know where they were debuting at. I even wrote music, sung my own demos on my phone. Like I lived and breathed music. I was a music person. Like I always said, if I wasn't in the music industry, like as a songwriter or something like that, I would want to be in radio. Like I would want to have my own radio show where I could do two things at once. Music, what I love to do, I could play music for a living and give my opinion all at the same time. That's always been what I wanted to do. So now I'm at this place, like I just said before, that love reality TV. That's probably going to always be a thing for me. Gossip, I don't really care about. But I do it because that's what they want. But music is something that I really want to bring to my platform. Like I've dug into it here and there. Like I did a segment with my cousin called The Influence one time where we discussed music, and it did okay. But the thing of it, and people wanted us to continue to do it, but our schedule just wasn't working the right way, so I couldn't do it with him anymore. And then, then I started doing the little things like the Murder Inc. stuff, and then the Rap City stuff. And I'm like, I want to do more than just pinches of it. Like I just want to really dive into it the way I want to.
What I will say, and I mean, I think it kind of just depends on how you approach everything. But for my channel, I pretty much only make videos when I have something I want to say. And it doesn't work for everybody because some folks like consistency, but at least what I've learned is that I can confidently say every video I've ever put out has purpose behind it, kind of.
Yeah.
So because of that, there ends up being a certain element of quality or effort behind it, and that I think people tend to appreciate, which kind of somehow puts me in this safe bubble where, yes, I can go, a few weeks without doing a video and I'm still going to have the following there. So I think like as you jump into what you jump into, I think if you're a lot more intentional with specifically what it is you want to cover, like things you actually are passionate about or really like care about a lot more, it always reflects in the work and it brings in more people. Because honestly, my channel started growing once I became more intentional about what I put out. Because there was a window where I was definitely just putting out videos just because I was just trying to keep up with everybody else. I think one time I tried to review Love and Hip Hop. I was like, you don't even watch this show. Go ahead. Years ago, I was trying to I need some numbers.
Oh my God.
I don't think that video's up. I probably took it down.
I cannot imagine you reviewing Love and Hip Hop.
I remember I reviewed a fight one time. The Sharkeisha. Remember Sharkeisha?
Oh,
I had a Sharkeisha video. And then I was like, what are you doing? That's great. It'll bring you an audience, but for the stuff you want to do, that audience isn't going to care about that stuff. So at least kind of let it kind of somewhat mirror. But I think if you want to branch out, extend, go for it. But again, you kind of work in a different space because you're covering current events within entertainment, and entertainment is ongoing all the time. So it's kind of, it's a bit different than maybe some of what I do, because mine's a bit more political, and mine's kind of right now, I know I need to do an Israel-Palestine video ASAP because I'm getting cussed out because I haven't said anything yet. But those kind of things are like an ongoing thing where you have a grace period to kind of cover it, as opposed to I don't know what City Girls just came out with a CD today. Like you only got so much time to talk and review it before nobody cares. So
Right.
I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's something that you just said that is very true. When you really care about something and you're passionate about it, it shows in the quality of the work.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, when it comes down to like my gossip stuff, people can kind of tell I don't care. Because sometimes you get complaints about it, and like I've seen complaints about it, and people will be like, well, I want the commentary, but he playing videos or he reading the article. That's only because I don't care. And half of the time, like I be at work most of the time. So when I get home, I'm like, as I'm reporting this stuff on my channel, this is my first time seeing it. So I haven't had the time to really sit down, read it, look at all the videos, write down the summary. I'm trying to keep up and make sure y'all get the videos at a timely manner. So a lot of the times when I'm doing it, that's my first time seeing it. So it's gonna show, but it also shows that he don't give a damn. He just putting this shit out because everybody asking him to. Because I don't care. Like gossip, I do not care. I can't say it enough. I do not care about that. But I just pretty much do it because that's what the people want. But, at the same time, there are some things in blogs that I might care about, but a lot of this stuff, I don't care.
Yeah, but there is a lane for everything too.
Yeah.
So everything has its. Because I know normally if I did a lot of celebrity related gossip, it was in the news segment. So what I used to do, I would put all the celebrity stuff in the beginning and all the fun, happy stuff, and then the heavier topics towards the end. So people that would watch that, they knew what they were coming for, and you already had steps. So if they didn't want to hear about entanglements that day, they just jumped to the end of the video, and I'm probably going off about redlining or something. So it all varies. So YouTube is, there's no rules to this. You just kind of do what you do.
But I think I found my foot before we move on to the next thing. I think I found, like, I'm listening to everything that you're saying, and I know I'm probably gonna rewatch this video, listen to everything you just said, and I'm probably gonna apply it to myself and just really just jump out there and really do exactly what I want to do. But like I said, I'm not going to not do reality TV content anymore, because I really love that. I actually care about that. As far as the gossip, I'm not going to stop doing that too, but I'm going to do better. I am trying to do better at bringing it out, but but I really want to get into that music thing. That's really where I shine it. Like, I look back at my Rap City video and I'm like, that's probably one of the best videos I did, but ain't nobody gonna see it.
But to be fair, I don't think BET promoted the series anyway. I didn't even know there was a Rap City doc until.
Listen, I didn't know either until like 2 or 3 days before. So maybe people didn't know.
I'm like, why y'all didn't promote this?
Yeah, maybe people just didn't know because they promoted the Murder Inc. one. I knew about that ahead of time, but maybe people just really didn't know about the Rap City one. So that could be what it is. Now, you brought up Unsung. Who would you like to see on Unsung? It don't have to be just one person. I want to know if you're thinking some of the same people I'm thinking about.
It almost covered everybody. I'm trying to think of Unsung. I would like Janae. That would be a fun group.
Yeah.
Who else am I thinking of? Unsung. They did a Shantae Moore one. God, we'd be here all day faster. Remember, what's her name? Debla Morgan? That she had the Dance With Me song.
I remember the song. I just never knew who sung it.
She was this really, really great singer. But she wanted to be pop, but the industry's fickle when Black women, they just put everybody in the R&B box, so it didn't cross over that well. Who else? Dang, I'm trying to remember who they didn't actually do one on.
Do you want me to tell you who I think while you thinking about it? It's a lot of girl groups, for one. But for two, I wanted Tevin Campbell to do one, but he said he didn't want to do one. Yeah, he did Uncensored, and I didn't like that. I ain't like Uncensored because I wanted to know more about his eras, like what happened in between. Like, it was all right, but it really wasn't what I wanted. So I want to see Total do one.
Okay.
I want to see somebody just put it in the group, put it in the chat. I want to see the group J do one because I don't think we know much about their story. I want to see them do one.
One of them has a book.
Oh, which one?
Can't remember which one, but one of them has a book. I gotta go back and Google it. From Jade, I can't remember which member.
Oh, okay. Because I don't even think I remember all their names. Let me see. I want to see Lil Mo do one. I don't know why she hasn't done one when she was on TV One. So I don't know why she hasn't done a unsung. Maybe she don't feel like she unsung. I don't know. But I would love to see her do an unsung. Who else? It's a lot of people from the 90s that I think that we should know more about. Because one unsung that I really enjoyed was Phyllis Hyman. I
And
really enjoyed hers, like because I would hear about her all the time. And I know my mother loved her music too. And I went and listened because it was a song that they talked about that they really they was on it a lot. It was a song called Living All Alone. And I went back and I listened to it and I'm like, this was amazing. Why wasn't she where she needed to
we
be?
covered her book in my book club, and it was kind of dope because the author of the book ended up coming to one of the sessions, so we kind of
Mm-hmm.
some extra insight. But yeah, there's a book on her called "Strength of a Woman" by Jason Michael, or Jason A. Michael. So that's a really good one if you want insight about just the industry, because yeah, she dealt with a lot of nonsense.
Yeah, because I even go and look at like her the interview that she did with Donnie Simpson on Video Soul where she talked about like how she would work so hard and they'll put the hair weave on the girls, throw them out there and stuff like that, and then you got a hit record and they can't sing a lick. Like she sound like me today when I'm talking about these people that's doing music today. But okay, it's an artist that I love.
Ideal. I don't know if you remember
Ideal, the
the
group
R&B group.
Ideal.
Ideal, they would be good. Because I feel like Unsung covers so many people. I'm trying to think who they didn't cover that I would want. Because they got a lot of the folks I really enjoyed back then. I would like, they're not gonna do it, but in Vogue would be interesting. But I mean, in Vogue with everybody who's been a member, so including Rona and even find Amanda wherever she's at, plus Don and Maxine. And I know it would kind of probably be how they did Escape, where you had everybody giving their own recognition and stuff. Like in Vogue would be a really good one. Like some of these folks, you be trying to reach out to their management to get interviews, but it's Tevin I've been working for, but Tevin be booked. So
Right.
I'm trying to interview Tevin because I would love to talk about like the Back to the World projects and some of the
I
other
was just about to bring him up because I wanted to interview him too. I just made a tweet about
we in competition now. Let me get on off of this show.
Listen, I made a tweet about that last night. I said I really want to talk to Tevin Campbell. Let me ask you this because everybody that watch me knows, everybody that knows me in real life knows that he is probably my favorite male artist, one of my favorite male voices, and he is my go-to at karaoke's. I always sing "Can We Talk" all the time. Why do you think Tevin's career began to slow down when Back to the World came out?
Back to the World, I like the song, but it wasn't the right single. And I think by the time Back to the World came out, the industry was kind of shifting. And I think he struggled with transitioning from child star to, even though the I'm Ready album is pretty suggestive as far as what he's singing about, I think people still kind of put him in the kid box. And so I feel like by the time you got to the next album, even with the imaging, because like, look at how different the Back to the World video is from Could You Learn to Love, which is my Tevin song, or one of them. I think they were struggling to figure out what to do with the imaging. You also now there's other male singers that have been coming up. Usher hasn't quite blown up yet, but he's on the way. You still have Tony Thompson who's doing his thing. I don't know. Because honestly, that Back to the World album was a really great album, like excellent album. But and even the one that followed it was actually pretty decent too.
It was.
I think there was just already a slowdown because even the I'm Ready album has a slowdown during its album era. Everybody remembers Can We Talk? But some of the other singles, they still did what they did. But I don't know. I just don't think they worked the I'm Ready album the same way they worked the debut, oddly enough, even though I'm Ready sold really well. I always say, so it happened, how your album era ends plays a role into the anticipation for the next one.
That is very true.
I personally think Tevin's debut is so underrated as far as impact, because this is an album that has like 8 singles. So there was, Round and Round, and Tell Me What You Want Me to Do, and Alone With You, and Goodbye, and Confused, and Unsung, and there's another song on there I'm skipping somewhere, but like they worked the hell out of that album. And I think that's what kind of set him up for the success that would be I'm Ready, right?
Right.
I don't know if the same push was there, and it should have been because I mean, like he did the Goofy movie, Eye to Eye is a bomb, and Stand Out. So yeah, I just think they ran into challenges with the imaging, and I don't think Back to the World should have been, one of the singles to kind of push the album. I love the song, but I don't think it fit because it was very adult, and I think younger audiences weren't really pulled into it at that moment. Like, nah. Because by this time, we're now, it's the Timbaland Missy sound is becoming a thing. Aaliyah's out at this point. Genuine's out. So the sound's already evolving. And like something like Back to the World is a very adult, something like that I would have given to Angela Winbush at the time. That would have fit for what she was doing in the 90s. If you remember, she had the song Treat You Right.
Yeah, it's on the same level.
So good. Like, great song, great vocal, but I just don't know if that should have been Tevin's push, to push the album, but it's still great track.
I have my own theories about that because I never really thought about how I'm Ready kind of slowed down. Now that I think about it, it did, because like you say, the only songs that people kind of blast off about was Can We Talk and I'm Ready.
And and sometimes Always in My Heart.
Sometimes Always in My Heart.
It's crazy because these are excellent singles. But it is what it is.
And people sleep on the other song, Don't Say Goodbye. I didn't even know that was a single for so many years until I really started reading up on music and stuff. I'm like, that was a single? Because growing up around my mom and growing up around my older cousins, like, all you really used to hear them do was play Can We Talk, I'm Ready, and Always in My Heart, because Always in My Heart was one of my mom's favorite Tevin songs. Like, she would always play that. So I'm like, okay, I did not know that Don't Say Goodbye Girl was a single. And then, just like you said, we're in 1996 when Back to the World come out. So in 1996, you got the Bad Boy sound. You got the Missy and Timbaland sound. It's becoming more hip hop. You got Montel Jordan, all that stuff. This Is How We Do It was a hit like a year before that album even came out. So, and then again, another thing that I would hear about was when Back to the World first came out, he had those old dog braids in his head, and people used to jones him about that. And then, they used to go in on him about that. And then, as you can see, after that, they took the braids out. And then it was pretty much a chop after that, but I was really, because I said something about this on Twitter just the other night. I'm like, y'all was so busy focusing on them damn old dog braids, but y'all slept on a song like I Got It Bad, which was also a single. I think his second single was I Got It Bad, and I enjoyed that vocal on that song. Like, that was probably his lowest vocal he ever had, and I enjoyed it. And Could You Learn to Love was also a great song.
I would have made that if he was going to keep going that route. I would have made Could You Learn to Love the first single, just because the vocal from the second half alone would have been able to carry the song. And if he had the same look from the video, because by then he chopped the hair and everything, I think it would have worked, because it kind of gave him he kind of appears a lot more youthful when he chopped the hair again. So it's kind of like a whole image shift, because I think when he had the braids, I felt like it aged him up a little bit. And then as soon as he chopped them off, it was like, okay, now he looks like I don't know if you're still trying to push him as a teenager, because he's grown at this point. But yeah, I think Could You Learn to Love would have definitely blown up, especially it has that whole baby face sound in production, which was really big. So that would have been what I would have thought.
Oh, okay. We had messed up for a second. Okay, because I was thinking about it, and I was like, he does look younger in a I Got It Bad video. Like, he looked like old Tevin in that video versus the Back to the World video. And then I think by the time he came out with his fourth album, it was like, this is 19. Yeah, it was like, because this is 99 now, so it's like it's even more different now that he's out now. So I don't know, but I would love for him to do an album now. I don't know who would be a good person to put him in the studio with today, but he's more so of a legacy artist now, so it really wouldn't matter. But I would love to see him do an album today and see how it would sound.
Yeah, because he's still really polished. I don't know if you got a chance to go to the R&B Experience tour, but they came to DC. It was like Escape, Monica, Tevin, 112, H-Town, I think Silk and Tamar. But Tevin, like, his show was so polished. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's an element of quality that he just understands that he has to give to his audience, and so it was greatly appreciated. Not everybody in the crowd. Some of the folks just wanted to hear "Can we talk?" and they're like, "Get off the stage already!" But like the band, the background singers, even the arrangements of how he did the songs, I was like, I rock with Tevin. Tevin understands. He gets it. So yeah, I appreciate musicality.
And do you agree with this? Because I remember reading somewhere where someone said, "Well, Tevin didn't make it because Usher took his place." Do you think that that's what happened?
I don't think Usher took his place. I just think the cards were aligned for Usher. And
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes the cards are just aligned for some folks and they're not for others, right? I think because Usher kind of had the revamp with his image,
Mm-hmm.
um, it's almost like people. It's interesting because it's almost like people somewhat erased Usher's first era. They act like he
They
never
do.
he
They
started.
do.
And I think with Tevin, people kind of wanted to keep him in the kiddie box and wouldn't let him grow into something more. And so I think that they were just because it's interesting when Usher first came out. One of the biggest critiques he had was they were like he's too sexually aggressive to be a teenager. Like they were like, this is not, we don't know what to do with this kid. Plus the voice change and everything else, so they didn't know how to push and market him. But at that time, Tevin was safe and had great vocals and everything. So Tevin was, riding his wave still. But I think for Usher, the car is just aligned. And then to me, Usher and Tevin are very different. I think they
Mm-hmm.
both appreciate musicality, but Usher's also, to me, a very visual performer.
Yeah.
Yes, he can sing, but Usher's going to spin on his head at the same time, and then he's going to play the drums, and then he's going to go get a guitar, and then he's going to start skating backwards and stuff. Tevin was never one to really do too much dancing. If you want to go back and watch the Strawberry Letter video, he do a little 8 count here and there, but he didn't want to dance. He was kind of, he's from that era of when you stand and sing and deliver. So I just think it's just a different space. And again, our conversation with like the shifts in the industry, production, imaging was changing. The marriage between hip hop and R&B was becoming a bit more locked in. So I just think the cards were just different for him.
Now, I know I said this was going to be an hour, but I'm really enjoying this conversation. So I'm
You
just
feel
going to
anxious a little
extend it for just a few. Okay, so I'm just going to extend it for a few more minutes because I love this conversation. Now, I was at the barbershop yesterday and I was looking at my phone and they were talking about R&B, like female R&B artists that came out in the early 2000s and how they disappeared. So I want to bring up a couple of those artists and I want to know what you thought about them and why do you think they didn't last? You had Blue Cantrell, you had Sunshine Anderson, you had Olivia, and who else was out? Who else came out around that time and they did not stick around? Those are females. Okay, for the males, well, I'm starting with the females. I think I said
Blue
Blue
Can.
Cantrell, Sunshine Anderson, Olivia. I think those are the only three that I said.
Blue Cantrell, issues with the label for the next album. Breathe, the single didn't really catch on, but there was some great songs on that album, especially the Sleep in the Middle. Like
I
I didn't
had that single.
that. I was like, my God.
Right.
I also felt image wise, a lot of people got her mixed up and felt that she was kind of in Faith Evans' shadow as far
Yeah.
as imaging. And they have really similar tones and textures. So I did for her, it was mainly just label nonsense. And once you have an album that doesn't do as well, labels just don't put the same work behind you anymore, and they just kind of let you fade into oblivion. So I think that's kind of what happened with her. Who else did you say?
Sunshine Anderson. That's the second one.
And heard it all before. Lunch or Dinner should have been a bigger hit. I think if Lunch or
I
Dinner
agree.
caught on a bit more, I think she would have had some more legs. But she did. I think she did a good job of transitioning into more of the adult R&B or what radio calls urban AC formats because she's had a lot of singles that have been relatively successful in that market. But I think for her too, she came out at the peak of like the teen pop explosion. So I think her music was too mature for what labels were trying to get behind. And so a lot of R&B acts around that time, they were kind of like, we need to either dumb you down with age to make you more appealing since, these 17-year-olds are buying up all these albums so quickly. We need you to either appeal to them or we're not going to put everything behind you. So I think with Sunshine, it was a similar situation where they didn't know what to do with her. So she had, the great R&B smashes, but they didn't know what to do. So they kind of just pushed her by the wayside. But I think she's kind of found a way to kind of hold on and come out with a hit here and there on the R&B charts. Olivia should have been under a different label. I've always said, I actually did this when I was at Howard. It was one of my papers. I don't like R&B artists signing with hip hop labels. So at all, because it never goes well, especially it just, I look at Diddy and a lot of the R&B acts, they have a cool run, but like most of them only survive for 1 or 2 album eras, maybe. I think 112 where they were able to slip through the cracks. Faith Evans, a few other folks, but like something about R&B acts being signed to hip hop labels, I think it puts them in a bucket where industry folks, and this is back when we still had music networks and radio, they automatically kind of lock those artists into the shadow of whatever hip hop label the artist is under, and they're like, oh, that's 50 Cent's singer girl. That's the girl that sings with 50. And so I think it limited because she had this great song, this single called "So Sexy" that had dropped that I thought they were gonna push, but instead that's when they had pushed the "Twisted" song, which it was cool. I would have come a little stronger, but yeah, I think it, because they wanted to kind of lock her in with the whole G Unit crew and everything, it limited what her image was going to be, and it made people not as receptive to her as an artist because she had some really great songs. So yeah, I just think a lot of times it's the industry. I don't think the general population ever just automatically says no to an artist. There's always something in the cards that didn't align that leads to the audience being like, I talk about this in the next Mariah, So What Happened. There's a segment in there about just the difference between now and then, where today, because of social media, a lot of artists have been saved because of social media, because people, nope, you're not counting them out. But back then that wasn't a thing. So if media, radio, the major networks and journalists say this person is done, then everybody bought into it like, yeah, they're not cool anymore. So then like you look at something like Mariah Glitter and you would think it was a terrible album. And then really you're like, actually this album got some stuff on it, but you would have never known, because if you weren't somebody following her, but you only listened to what the media and journalists and everything else was saying, you were under the impression it hit some crazy lady stripping on TRL that fell off and the music sucks. Like that's kind of, and then 9/11 happened too. So it's kind of like
right.
So yeah, there's a conversation in that episode about that when I finally put it out. But yeah, general opinion on things, like a lot of it is influenced by the higher powers that be, but that's kind of shifting now in this era of social media, which I do love it to one extent. And then on the other end, I'm like, okay, y'all let a lot of stuff slide too. But
well, when it comes to Olivia, for me, because I think sometimes people forget that before G Unit, she was signed to Jay. She was actually under Clive. And I remember Olivia doing an interview when she first got with G Unit, and she was saying it at the time because she was the first artist that he signed on Jay. And I remember her saying he signed her and then he signed Alicia. And he said that he wanted Alicia to be the good girl at the piano, but wanted Olivia to be the bad girl and cursing in the songs and stuff like that. And she said that wasn't the kind of music that she wanted to make. You know what I mean? And if you listen to her first album, you could tell what kind of music she actually wanted to make. Right. Have you ever heard her first album before?
Can't take. Are You Capable? I remember.
Yeah. She, like, I believe songs like the When Souls, Two Souls Touch is like her thing that she liked, that she wanted to make. She wanted to, maybe I think like the It's On Again record is something that was more her speed. All that, I really believe that that's the type of music she wanted. She didn't want to do Biz Ounce. That's what Clive wanted to do.
I always say that the same with like Tierra Marie and Rihanna when they both dropped. The marketing, because I was under the assumption that when they both dropped, it was going to be Tierra that blew up. I thought Rihanna, because Upon the Replay was cool, but I was like, okay, this is going to be a girl that's going to have a quick little hit. They're going to push her off to the side because it looks like they're behind Tierra because she's the one that's on Rockefeller. But with the imaging, Rihanna had an approachable image. I thought Tierra's image was, even though she was about to be 18, she was still technically 17. Her imaging was too mature. And so it's like 17, you got the parental advisory sticker. You're doing all the interviews. They ask you what's your favorite food, and you're talking about pepper jack steak. I'm like, no, when you're 17, you're supposed to say pizza. So that makes you appealing to that kind of stuff. And then, I love the album, but it was interesting because you would have thought the way, because Tierra, I thought she was going to be who they were pushing. Even when they had that, remember the Destiny's Child tribute performance, and it's Rihanna, A-Marie, and Tierra. And they kind of got like almost pushing Tierra like she's going to really be that one. But I think imaging plays such a huge role in a lot of things and what labels want to do. So that's interesting with Olivia and Alicia. So
yeah, you could kind of tell, and then I could tell that he put more into Alicia than he did with Olivia, because I mean, let's be honest. I remember when Olivia first came out with Biz Ounce, and I loved that song from the time I heard it, but I never.
It was kind of Aaliyah esque with the visual.
Yeah, it did. It was giving a lot of Aaliyah when she like the way she would dance and stuff in the video. It did give like a dirty version of Aaliyah, parental advisory version of Aaliyah.
And
I
I think
remember,
it closes it off too because of the lyrics. You know,
yeah,
play F you automatically. MTV's like, all right, we
yeah, they
don't.
wouldn't play it.
Yeah,
Yeah, they wouldn't play because I remember BET. Like I remember being home for spring break, and you could tell the video. I remember it playing as they have all the videos that was in heavy rotation, like Lil Mo Superwoman, heavy rotation. Even Sunshine Anderson's Heard It All Before, heavy rotation. What else was out? Disney Child Survivor, heavy rotation. They barely played Biz Ounce on BET, barely played it. And then I would be so excited when I would catch it. And then they didn't even have her come on 106 and Park to promote the album. I didn't even know it was coming out one time up until I was looking at the Vibe magazine back then, and then they had her flyer up, and I'm like, the album finna come out. And then I remember them doing her new joint of the day for Are You Capable, and they never played that video. Thank God for
the time I think
YouTube.
I saw it was the premiere.
Right.
So, yeah.
Thank God for YouTube, because now I can watch it whenever I want to. But back then, I used to be sitting around waiting for them to play it. They was never playing it. So I don't know if it was more so, like you said, it could be her marketing and how they had her cursing on the records. Because back then, you couldn't do it. You didn't have many R&B artists doing it. So maybe it was that, or maybe he put more into Alicia because she was more safe. I don't know. That could be what it is.
And I think with Alicia, they knew that there was an opportunity for crossover into the adult contemporary market. So the Celine Dion audience is going to be receptive to Alicia. They weren't going to be receptive to Olivia just based off the singles. So, you know, there's the girl on the piano, and okay, Clive Davis, the name is behind it. All right, yeah, let's get behind her. Okay, so you know, you kind of saw where Alicia was able to go, because even I just went to she had a show here maybe 2 months ago, and I said it in my review just how I think Black people collectively, we have our Alicia and white people got theirs. When I tell folks in there were going up for it, like they went so hard for Girl on Fire, and I'm like, if you knew how much we used to all skip that song because it plays so
like hated it.
It was like you would have thought, like, I don't know, everybody just won the lottery. I mean, and these are like 50 and 60-year-old people, like, I mean, high fiving it. And then, I'm like, okay, I'm waiting for, you know, you don't know my name, and if I ain't got you, but okay.
Yeah, like
hard for a Girl on Fire. I'm like, if you know how much we were ready for that song to go,
like we hate that song.
Woo! So yeah, she was able to capture multiple audiences.
Okay, so let's see here. Let's talk about, I would say, the artists that dropped around like or coming out in the early 2010s, like Tamar, who had an album out 10 years earlier, but she got her resurgence by being on Breakfast Family Values, because some people don't even know that she had an album before Love and War. Right. So let's say Tamar, K. Michelle, Seven Streeter. I even say Tierra Thomas. What would you say about those acts, and why you think that they were only able to get minor to moderate success with R&B music?
Well, by then R&B at most labels was not even a priority anymore.
Yeah,
it's kind of the end of the EDM fist pumping era, and then all the EDM fist pumping artists that needed a new sound to hop on went R&B esque. So now this is Katy Perry going from Firework and Teenage Dream to Dark Horse,
right?
And so I think that's one element of it. I think, yeah, because that also affected radio.
It did.
Radio really just kind of said to hell with R&B. And so I think because that's around the time I started my R&B is Dead series. So
yeah.
And yeah, I think a lot of R&B acts, because, you know, 2012, 2013, man, because I'm like, that's Brandy's 211 comes out, honestly does not do that well. Monica's New Life does not do that well. Even Alicia, who's still selling, but she had slowed down.
Right.
Coming off of Beyonce 4, which still sold decently, but people were saying it, you know,
it was a flop.
It's 3 albums, it was a flop.
Right.
I don't agree, but I understand. You know, all of and for the male acts, just forget it. You know, Tank and all of them were coming out with albums nobody even cared about. So I think, and that's not a dig, but it's just where the industry was.
Yeah.
2013, for me, 2011 to about 2015 were the darkest years to be an R&B artist because commercially nobody was really catching on if they weren't already established. Like looking at like even like a Janelle Monáe Electric Lady album, you would have thought that would have caught on, and it did absolutely nothing. And I'm like, dang man, y'all suck. Aside from maybe Miguel and with the because Adorn had blown up, there weren't a lot of R&B acts that were having a lot of really major success at that time. They were doing just fine on the R&B charts in the R&B world, but pop was just totally ignoring R&B. And like I said, a lot of the pop acts had kind of shifted. So this is kind of, we're getting into that era where our pop acts have a lot more street cred. Justin Bieber doesn't want to be pop anymore. He wants to, he wants to R&B it up, right? Justin Timberlake has the 2020 Vision, which is pretty much an R&B album, if we're being honest. Robin Thicke,
Blurred Lines.
He said, well, clearly I'm white and this ain't working for me. So the hell with y'all niggas, I'm gonna switch over to, let me quit. But so he will get Blurred Lines, we're gonna go to pop. And I think that was a foolish choice because now you see what's happened. He went that way and now he lost both audiences. But I just think it was a really gloomy time to be an R&B act. And there were some really great projects that came out around that time, which sucks. Because I think I noticed it was around the time Jasmine dropped.
Was it reality show?
No, not reality show. The one before that. It's not called Holding You Down, is it? Love Me Back.
Love Me Back.
Love Me Back didn't. Well, some of that's on Jasmine because she threw the towel in after the first week. She was like, hell no, I'm done. I quit. I was like, Jasmine, wait, come on now. But
right.
When that album didn't do what it should have done, that's when I started noticing, okay, the R&B acts are starting to struggle here, like a lot, like a whole lot. And I noticed either if they didn't go a lot more pop, they really got ignored. Because it's just a weird time period. I think around 2016 is when you started to see a shift, something like a Solange, Cranes in the Sky, and some of these other songs started to kind of open a different space. And I think by the time you got to 2018, now you have like SZA and them who are finally getting those songs that cross back over a little bit towards mainstream. So it's just industry was just being trashy.
I would say that around that time, like I think you said 2010 or 2011 to like 2015. That's around the time I stopped listening to the radio.
It was
like I hated it. Like I stopped listening to the radio. But I also want to know another thing too. Why? Because nowadays, because I remember K. Michelle saying this, because she says this a lot, but I remember her saying this on the Joe Budden show. They used to have a show called Everyday Struggle. I remember her saying this, and she was saying that they only shift they shift most R&B acts of today to urban AC radio now, and they don't really play them on urban mainstream like that unless they're like a Summer Walker or a SZA or somebody like that. They shift a lot of them to urban AC. Why do you think that is? Because when you think about it, because I also have to, because in this conversation, we can also talk about 7th Street and how unappreciated she is.
Man, because to me, everybody borrowed from the Call Me Crazy EP as far as their sound, the entire sound. And I'm not even going to because I ain't trying to start a war on here on your channel, but there were about 3 or 4 artists that all dropped projects where I'm like, this is straight up everything 7th Streeter just did 3 years ago that y'all
right.
Yeah, definitely.
Like a record like Before I Do should have been way bigger.
Mm-hmm.
But it only popped on urban AC because that's where they shifted to. They probably didn't think that urban mainstream would have played it. And what's so crazy and what's so sad about that was I didn't even know anything about Before I Do until about 2018, and that song came out a year earlier. I didn't even know anything about that song. And I was just like, how did I not know? But at that point, I was so out of tune with what was current at this time that I was just listening to all my old stuff. Like I was listening to all my Monica, my Brandy, my SWV, my Escape, all that old stuff. Even Luther and all them. I was listening to all my old stuff, so I really wasn't paying attention to what was out. So I'm like, why would a song like Before I Do not be a huge record? I know that if this was early 2000s, that would be a big record everywhere. So it's like now it's like they ship artists that make R&B like that to urban AC markets. And even now, 7 just came out with an album, I think a year or 2 ago, and it went nowhere.
Right.
Why do you think 7 It's so unappreciated because she's one of the best artists that came out in 2010 in the 2010s.
I think for her it's the conversation of cards again, because I remember when she came out with "I Like It," and I was like, "Oh, this is about to blow up!" Like
Right.
that song was, and it did nothing. I'm like, "Damn, y'all suck." Um, I just think the worst time to have come out as an R&B artist, in my opinion, is between about 2010 and 2014. The industry was just not forget. Other than maybe Elle Varner, there weren't a lot of R&B acts that were able to really come out and kick a few doors down around that time. There were a handful, but pretty much if you were an R&B act, if you weren't overly saturated in hip hop or a lot more oriented with pop, just R&B in general. Because in my head, when I say R&B, the first song that always comes in my head is Faith Evans, As Soon As I Get Home. So like, if you were
Mhm.
that caliber of an R&B artist act, then you just already automatically they put you to Urban AC. And
Right.
I think that's kind of been a cop out with radio. And now radio is starting to lose its influence because people are now shifted to like curated playlists on the streaming sites. But with radio, I think when radio was still regional, that was when it was best for R&B acts because it was still about more so what the people in the area requested. Now that you have just the nationally syndicated playlist, you got execs that are like 60, 70-year-olds that just say, these are going to be the 20 songs we're going to play the most. And they're like, we got to make room for everybody. So we're, especially with rhythmic radio, rhythmic is pretty much replaced what you used to call top 40 radio from the 70s.
Mhm.
And so rhythmic is pretty much the format that's going to play all of the biggest. It's pretty much our new pop radio. So
But yeah.
automatically, what they're doing is exactly the same practice they used to do back in the day with R&B when it was, it was R&B. They called it R&B after 1949, and then in the 80s they called it the Black Singles Chart, and then it went back to R&B later on again. But they're doing exactly what they used to do back then, where they weren't going to let a song cross over unless it already blew up on the R&B charts. And if
Mhm.
and at this point, because R&B radio is compromised, because you're limited to pretty much Urban AC, there's not really just R&B radio anymore. That's kind of merged into rhythmic, which now is more so hip hop and the spicy pop artists mixed together. So there's no lane for R&B acts like that. And so, yeah, you get a few anomalies. You'll get a Summer Walker or a SZA, Chris Brown, kind to an extent. But yeah, for R&B acts, I just don't think the industry is very forgiving right now. And with the shifts in the TV networks, we're not really watching music networks anymore. There's just no push behind them because you're also not seeing like Seven and a lot of these people on any of the talk shows or anything. You don't see them anywhere. You're seeing them on the blog. So you might see an article on Rated R&B or That Grape Juice or one of the R&B blogs, but other than that, they're not even getting media.
Yeah, that's another thing that I've noticed because it's like for like most black artists, they don't even get to be on talk shows that much these days to promote an album. Because I remember there was a time where you could put Brandy on damn Good Morning America to promote an album, or you could put Monica on the early show to promote an album, or go to the talk or go to the View. Like I remember seeing fucking Keisha Cole on the View promoting a different me, and that's when Keisha Cole was at the top of her game at that time. So
and then they'd be on sitcoms too. So
yeah.
then they're on whatever sitcom. I talked about that in one of those music talk videos I did. But yeah, they'd be on the sitcoms. They'd be in all these different places. So that idea of, I think in general, this idea of the superstar is changing anyway. I don't think you have a lot of household names in entertainment anymore, aside from the Taylor Swifts and the Beyoncés and some of the
I was
really
just gonna say
greats.
that.
But other than a handful of acts, most of the people are no longer household names. When I say household name, I mean as in mom knows who it is, the kids know who it is. If grandma comes in the room, she might pronounce the person's name wrong, but she know who it is.
Right.
Like that era has kind of come and gone just because the industry shifted in so many different ways. So I do think things are slowly getting somewhat better just because of social media, but the structure that we knew growing up, I don't think exists anymore. And I think that's why like millennials have a really hard time enjoying this current music industry.
So let me ask you this: what happened to the male R&B artists?
Y'all suck. No, I'm just kidding. No,
That's about true though.
I think it's the same conversation because I mean, there's some really great ones. I thought Luke James would have blew up.
Yeah.
I like what McGill was doing, but he slowed down for some reason. Avery Wilson hasn't really had his hit yet, but he's a really talented one. There's a few of them, but again, I think labels realized that pop sells faster, hip hop sells faster, and so we again got into that space where, as an R&B act, if you weren't heavily associated with hip hop, you weren't gonna get like that kind of play. So even when you go back to like Trey Songz, the Ready album,
Yeah.
you would have thought that that was a massive, massive album because he had a lot of hit singles on the R&B charts. But like when you looked at the overall sales, I don't think that album even scanned platinum. If it did, it's now because of streaming. But at the
Yeah.
time, I think
It was gold.
it set around like 600,000 copies, which was crazy because it was like you had what Neighbors Know My Name and Say Ah and I mean all these different songs that were really big in R&B but had never crossed over. And I didn't realize he really didn't have a crossover hit till Bottoms Up. And that's really just because Nicki was on the song.
And Say I was the biggest record he had on the Ready album. That was
Yeah.
the biggest one.
And so I just think because even then, like by then, Usher had slowed down. Here I Stand had really got ignored, in my opinion. If you're talking about major crossover, yes, he had a number one with
Love in His Club.
Singles all hell, like I saw what happened on that. All the other singles did somewhat decent on R&B, but pop ignored it. So that's around that time period. All the pop acts were being ignored. Chris was able to kind of somewhat have some legs on with what he had going, but the dynamic of what to do with male singers, I don't think anybody knows what to do with them.
Because I feel like this with male singers is always a one note, one trick pony type of thing. They're either going to be overly sexualized or they're going, or the bad boy or the thug, or that you don't really have many R&B male R&B artists that really sing about their feelings because that's not acceptable. Like I haven't seen a male version of a Mary J. Blige yet. That's something that I wanted to see for years, and I don't think we will ever see that because they don't want that to be a I don't know why they won't allow that to happen. And then that's why I asked you that, because if there are any male singers out there right now on the radio, I would know because we don't never hear about them.
I like October London, but the kind of music that he makes is only going to stay on Urban AC at the moment. He kind of has that like Marvin Gaye kind of sounding voice.
Mm-hmm.
R&B just kind of needs a no pun intended, it just kind of needs a renaissance because like I think because so many other genres, because to me personally, and people can get mad, I feel like every genre has pulled from R&B. Pop has done it, hip hop has done it, even country. I was talking about this with somebody maybe a year or two ago, where a lot of the country hits they almost have an R&B formula now. So if you kind of look at a lot of the big hits that have somewhat crossed over from country, they all kind of have this kind of I don't even know how to explain it, but when you listen to the rhythmic pattern, it's a very R&B-esque kind of riff, but just with a guitar. So everybody has been borrowing from R&B, everybody. And so what ends up happening is when R&B does what it's already been doing, nobody's excited about it because they've seen it with every other genre already. So even like when Justin Bieber was fighting with the Grammys because he wanted to be nominated in the R&B categories, I'm like, dude, come on. Like R&B acts already only get limited to the R&B categories at the Grammys. Why do you want to have a monopoly on that? I get that you all of a sudden think you down and from around the block. Cool. But enjoy the benefits of being a pop artist that can make R&B sounding music. But by you jumping into an R&B category where they've already merged it, where now it's also the same gender in the category as well,
which makes it harder.
So I'm like, so where's Lettucey supposed to go if you're going to be in the category? You know, where does Music Soul Child go in this conversation, or a Tank, or some of these people who, you know, they're not getting the radio play, they only get Urban AC play, and they're only ever going to be nominated in those R&B categories. And now you want to have a monopoly on that too. So you're doing that. Ariana, well, she ain't tanning no more, but she was getting darker with each album era. I like music, but I'm just saying, like, all of these people have borrowed and taken elements from what would technically be those elements of R&B music. And so I think R&B the identity has gotten lost because everybody's borrowed from it.
I think I used to always have a problem when I feel like more pop acts would be in R&B categories. That would always really get under my skin. Because even with the black artists that did pop records, just because they're black don't mean they need to be in R&B categories. Like, I don't know if you'll agree with me or not on this, but I was pissed off, I think, for the 2010 Grammys when I don't remember everybody that was in the category, but the main two I do remember was Jasmine Sullivan. She was nominated for Lions, Tigers, and Bears, and Beyonce was nominated for Single Ladies. I felt like Single Ladies did not
songs.
Yes, I felt like Single Ladies did not belong in the female R&B vocal performance category, because I always felt like Single Ladies was more of a pop record. And I felt like, why is that there? I know that when they put out I Am Sasha Fierce, what they did was they pushed Halo more into the pop arena and they pushed Single Ladies more so into urban. But I never felt like Single Ladies was an urban record. And I always felt like Jasmine Sullivan was robbed because a song like Lions, Tigers, and Bears deserves a Grammy when you got it up against a record like Single Ladies, in my opinion. You know, that's how I feel. Or even with the Rihanna thing, they'll put Rihanna in R&B categories. And I'm like, why is she in R&B?
AMAs in 2010 or 11, and it was only 3 in the category. It was Rihanna, The Weeknd, and Sade. I said, y'all, this is a group here. So okay.
Right. It's even like even K Michelle spoke about this before. Like she said, she said she remembered had an article written about her by the Billboard, and they was saying they called her the top selling R&B artist of 2014, which at that time she kind of was, but she
Oh yeah,
wasn't.
that's the album with what, Miss You Goodbye
I
on it.
think that's the one. Yeah, the Anybody Want to Buy a Heart
Yeah.
album. She was I think it was either the best-selling R&B artist of 2014 or 2015. It was between the two. And she was saying that you got this article written about me for the Billboard, calling me the top-selling female R&B artist, but you don't nominate me for the Billboard Awards. I'm not even invited to the Billboard Awards. And I was like, that's crazy. How you write an article saying that I got this acclaim, but you don't even invite me nor nominate me? That don't make any sense to me. You know, like it doesn't
They've
make
always kind of done that because that's even like when Ella May had the what was the big song she had?
Buddha.
Boot Up. And then when she did the Grammys, they put her on the little baby stage and let her sing for about a minute and then get off the stage. I was like, now this is probably one of the biggest R&B songs in years, and y'all got this girl.
That's what I'm
on the
saying.
stage for a minute and then she got to go. Like
That was crazy. It was like, what? And then another thing that I also want to say, because this is going longer than I intended, but another thing that I want to bring up is because I was talking about this with a friend of mine, and I was saying the way the charts work these days is crazy.
stupid. It changes every week.
Yeah, they keep changing it because I remember the City Girls. They had the number one number one record on urban radio, but their song was nowhere near the top 40 of the Hot 100. And a lot of these R&B records or hip hop records get all this airplay on radio. And you would think if you listen to the radio, you would think that these songs are like one of the biggest records out there, but they really not doing it well on the charts. But if you hear it on the radio, you hear it on the radio so much, you think that's the biggest song out, but it's really not.
Mm-hmm.
Is that crazy to you? Because
yeah, it's that and it's audience impressions too. Like
yeah,
one thing I've learned too is the United States is very, depending on where you live, it's a very different experience. Because if you go to, I don't know, you go to Phoenix, City Girls on anybody's radio because there's not even any. Well, I'm not going to say that about Phoenix. I could be wrong. Let me find another city. If you go to Billings, Montana,
yeah,
not going to be any R&B hip hop station, anything. Period. So you have a lot of places like that in the country where, yes, City Girls, they're getting a heavy play in the Southeast Atlantic region. So all of Atlanta and you know, New Orleans and everybody like that is playing their stuff heavy. But then you get to these other regions, nobody's playing them at all. And so I think there's that. But also, again, a lot of like radio stations have also switched formats. Like every time the industry goes through its shifts, the radio stations also change their formats as well. Mm-hmm. So like a perfect example, like WBLS in New York, where Wendy Williams used to work, you know, like that's one of the biggest like R&B stations in the country. But there was a period in time when it was one of the biggest stations, period, just in the country. And then as soon as like what you call KISS, like that whole KISS network of radio stations became a thing, a lot of radio stations that at one point were R&B shifted over to the same because they got bought out by KISS and so on and so forth, shifted over to whatever KISS wanted their format to be. And so you lost a lot of radio stations. When Clear Channel turned into iHeart, there were more R&B hip hop stations that also changed their formats to whatever they changed to. And so a lot of the people in this business kind of look at what the trends are. The trend right now is Taylor Swift and Morgan Wallen. And so the industry says that's what we're getting behind. And so you may be racking up the hits on the urban AC charts, but or even the rhythmic charts to an extent, but it's not crossing over to that parallel of mainstream America, which is just code for what the kids in the suburbs are listening to.
Yeah.
So it sucks. All of it's depressing when you really start sitting with it. I'm like, dang, man.
It is. The more we had this conversation, it is depressing because, like, you see a person like Taylor Swift being one of the biggest stars out there. I remember going to Atlanta earlier this year, and she had a show, and the lines was long as fuck trying to get into the stadium to go to her show. And I'm like, they really listen to this? I don't know not one song by Taylor Swift, but she got a big ass audience, and I probably won't ever understand it, but she do. And like, it is depressing when you think about how the industry used to run, especially when we were growing up and looking in the magazines and looking at them on TV. And this is the reason why, and I think I'll close this whole thing out with this discussion here, as far as like award shows. Now, we get a lot of Black artists that complains about,
Don't go to none of our shows. Would be fighting about the Grammys.
you knew exactly where I was going with this. They complain about the Grammys, but yet they still go. Y'all fighting against the Grammys, and y'all say the Grammys are not fair. The Grammys are this, the Grammys are there, but y'all continue to attend. There's the BET Awards, y'all don't show up. There's the NAACP Awards, y'all don't show up. There's the Soul Train Awards, which Soul Train Awards is probably one of the best Black award shows that we got right now. And on top of that, the Soul Train Awards was the reason why I found out about certain artists that I didn't know anything about. Is an artist by the name of Sir, I think. I didn't know anything about him until I saw him perform on the Soul Train Awards. So I'm like, okay, so y'all complain about the Grammys, but y'all go. I feel like when it came down to the BET Hip Hop Awards, and when they had like the tribute to, the 50 years of hip hop, I felt like people like Jay-Z should have been there. I felt like people like Nas should have been there. I feel like those type of people that were so big and influential and important to hip hop should have been there, but they won't go unless it's the Grammys.
Mm-hmm.
You want to seek white validation, but you don't want to go where you're celebrated. Like, a lot of these artists be nominated for BET Awards every single year, and BET give them the award, and they never be there to get their damn trophy. I would never understand that. And then I've even had an argument with certain people, and they'll be like, well, I feel like the VMAs is a more, like, they was trying to tear down the BET Awards and say that it's not credible, or it's not that important. But in the same breath, you want to say that the VMAs is a more prestigious award show.
Since about 2009. 2009, in my opinion, was the last golden ceremony of the VMAs, because by then MTV was already not even playing music by then. So like,
right,
last few ceremonies have not been good. You got a few good performances here and there, but MTV's not credible in that realm.
It's not. So
too much to just culture in general, not even pop culture, but just whatever's popular in the world, kind of. So they're definitely far removed from music.
That's what I'm saying. And I feel like, so why are you saying that VMAs are more important? Are you saying that because it's a white show, pretty much? Is that why you call it prestigious? But you tear down BET and say that they're not important, like you putting VMAs in the same reign as you would put the Grammys, or the Grammys is more important. I feel like any award is important. You know what I mean? Anytime, like any award, anytime you're awarded for what you bring to your craft and to the industry for the artist, but you have whatever you bring and they award you for it, that's important. I feel like if I was an artist and I was nominated for a Grammy, I would go to the ceremony, but I would also attend BET Awards, I would attend the NAACP Awards, I attend the damn Soul Train Awards. Like, don't ever get so big to where you forget who you started with.
Especially because we used to have a lot more award shows too, like back in the day. And I mean, just award shows specifically for like R&B artists, because you had like I think it was like the Black Music Awards was the thing.
The Lady of Soul Awards.
Then the Lady of Soul Awards, the Vibe Awards, the Source Awards.
Yes. Okay.
NAACP Awards was a thing. There's a few I'm skipping. And what was crazy is people went to all of them, right? And I always remember it might have been the Soul Train Awards, but they booed Janet because she wasn't there. But it was because she was on tour. But I mean, that's how people actually valued the shows back then, because it was like, no, because I feel like a lot of these shows were almost like a collective experience. So it wasn't even just about Black music, but it was just like the Black experience in total. I always like to watch It's a clip of BB and CC Winans doing "Hold Up the Light" with Whitney Houston, and then at the end they have these little lights. They bring everybody on the stage, and I feel like everybody who was black in Hollywood was on the stage because everybody was there that night. It was Rosa Parks was in the audience. I was like, damn.
Right. It was that, like, I remember those days, and now we don't really have many award shows that, like, for people to look at or for people to care about. And even when you look at the award shows, I don't know half the people that's fucking performing at this point. That's another thing.
Divide as well. I've also accepted the fact that I'm no longer the target audience for a lot of labels, but
Me too.
I do think award shows used to do a better job of kind of mixing it up, where you had a bit of everything. So maybe you don't know everybody, but you're still going to be pretty familiar. So yeah, it sucks. And I think for a lot of the acts who keep skipping these shows, for the up and coming acts that get invited, like I always used to fry up Jacquez, whatever his name was. But hey, he went to the Soul Train Awards and had a full band and was ready and did his song and did whatever he did. I was like, okay, yeah, take advantage since nobody else wants to take it.
And he actually sounded good at the SWV tribute. Actually sounded good.
Yeah, he was singing with who was the lady?
I forgot who he was singing with.
They did Always on My Mind, right?
They was singing always, Queen Naija. That's who he was singing with.
Yeah,
they actually sounded good for a change.
So I was like, listen, if all the main acts are too good, fine. Let some of these up and coming folks get some stage time, because then that's the beef I be having with the BET Awards. Because when they have the up and coming acts, they also end up on the baby stage, and then they go to commercial 30 seconds in. So yeah,
right. So for me, it's like. That's why I don't even review really the award shows anymore, because it's like whatever. And then even with the versus thing, I know a lot of people want them to put that to rest, but I really enjoy versus, depending on who they're doing it with. I feel like that was a good thing to do.
If they can go back to the earlier formula, I did like the last. Yeah, it was fun, and then when it got so commercial and so bought out, I started being a little turned off. But they've had some really good ones, because like I enjoyed like the Gladys and Patty one. And Stephanie, and I'm such an old head. The Earth, Wind and Fire and Isley Brothers, Brandy.
I enjoyed that one too.
Really, really fun to watch. Jill and Erica. Even those early ones where it's like T-Pain on the phone with what's his name on FaceTime, like all that. Those were fun. So I think, I think they're valued. They're definitely still needed. I just think you have to kind of revamp them to fit for where we're at now, since we're outside again.
Yeah, basically, because ain't nobody in the house no more like that no more. So it's like, but yeah, I just had to close it off with that conversation about the award shows, because it's whack that it's already whack enough that we don't have a lot of them, but it's also whack that a lot of our Black artists don't go to our award shows. And I'm gonna say this too. I was looking at the BET Hip Hop Awards the other night, and I was looking at the people that was performing, and I saw Sexy Red performing. And I was looking at that, and I was saying to myself, is this what y'all really like this? You know what I'm saying? And I had to catch myself. I said, I got it. Like you just said, I got to accept the fact that this is not my target audience.
That's what I was gonna say. I'm just not
I'm just the uncle now. I'm one of those uncles that say, well, back in my day, music sounded like this. Back in my day when I was coming up, because that's what I find myself saying. And my younger brother, I guess because he grew up around me, because he's like 11 years my junior, so he's heard a lot of the music that I play, and now I hear him in there playing Escape, and I'm like, what the fuck you know about that? He'll be like, well, you used to play it when I was a little boy all the time. He listened to 21 Savage and all that other stuff that I don't listen to, but he also gets into like the older stuff. But I'm like, y'all like this ski mess? Like, it's like, y'all like that?
I just think there has to be a balance. And because I always say, even in our generation, we had some songs that was a little out there too. But I think there was a balance where all these different categories of entertainers, and you had a good mix. So yeah, if there was something you weren't crazy over, that was fine. We're now in this space where the industry only allows one or two trends at a time, and then you get bombarded with it. And like slapped in the face with it, and it's the only options you have that, as far as what's pushed out there commercially. And we're now in this era where there's not really a lot of artist development either. So if you already Gen Z, millennials, even some of the younger or older, millennials, Gen X, and some of the older Gen Zs, we come from an era where we grew up where you had Michael, Prince, Janet, Whitney, Madonna, Mariah. They were all out on award shows and Boyz II Men. And so it's really hard to grow up with that and then be excited about what's out now.
Yeah.
There's people out there but again, it's hard. Like I remember being a child and watching, Michael with the leg cast on, doing Remember the Time, even though he was
Right.
that night. But still, like stuff like that was just normal to see.
Mm-hmm.
Or Black Men United performing "You Will Know" at the One Award show, and you had like every male R&B singer from Gerald Levert to Usher to Tevin to Stokely and Mick Condition, every Keith Singer, R. Kelly, all of them together on stage, and it was just normal. So it's just a different day and age, and so I'm trying to be a realist, but I'm also like, damn, this stuff sucks too, though. Like I'm trying
It
to.
does suck. It does. And
Yeah.
I'm glad that you mentioned that we had out there songs when we were coming up as well, because I remember there was stupid songs out back then. Like I remember that song, "That's Just My Baby Daddy, That's Just My Baby Daddy." They had that song playing on the radio, but then the next song they'll probably play after that was Shantae's "Got a Man at Home" or Usher "My Way" or something like that. Like you said, we had a balance. All we got is stupid shit now. That's all they play on the radio is stupid shit. That's all they perform at the award shows is stupid shit. So it's just like you said, we'll
And
have
at least know how to perform. If your song is terrible, at least
know how to perform.
I want you coming out the ceiling and everything. If you just standing there, because I always say like some of these folks don't even even with the projection. I'm like, you up here using that was my beef with Ice Spice. I'm like, she be on stage using her library voice, and I'm like, come on, like just. I need you to look like you want to be here.
And there's not a lot of female rappers that perform either today that can perform, because Ice Spice is boring. I can look at a Megan Thee Stallion performance and be entertained with her. She can rap and she entertains. I know somebody might get mad, but Nicki Minaj is not the best performer either. She's not to me. I don't be entertained. She can rap her ass off, but that performance is still lacking after all these years. So it's just like, but we could talk about this all night. Okay, so we're gonna end this because it's supposed to be all these are supposed to be hour-long conversations, but this one almost hit the 2-hour thing. But that just means that we probably need to do another video together like this.
I'm around. I don't be doing nothing but actually I'm lying. I'll be busy, but I can find some time.
Yeah.
I'm lying. Yeah, I got a whole bunch of projects outside of YouTube I've been working on for like the last year or two. So
yeah. Well, I do want to see your Mariah What Happened video. I am waiting for that. I cannot wait to see that. I hope you do one on Tevin. I hope you do one. I'm
trying to interview some of these folks. I just need them to start like, man, I think what it is, a lot of folks, because YouTube is messy too. So a lot of folks they
probably don't want to deal with us because they think we messy.
I'm not trying to get in your personal business. I just want to talk music, but that's fine.
Yeah, so, that's it. Like I even said that because well, me and Jamar, we've been doing the interviews with the reality stars, but we also want to go into like the music artists too. And we were saying like we don't want the music interviews to be the same as the reality TV interviews. Like we want to get into like your music and talk about each era, each album, all that. So I get it. So we're gonna have to come back together and do this thing together. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, I knew that this video was gonna be good. But I do believe that some people was like I saw some of the comments. They was like, how did that even get to happen? Or they're very different with the content that they put out. But we're really not that different when you really think about it. It's just that the content that I do is kind of ratchet and it doesn't really show me in my truest form that you probably think I'm ignorant as hell. And that's probably why you thought that we wouldn't mesh, but we kind of are like both, we're, both very intelligent men. We both have knowledge on music and stuff like that. So this kind of in a way, it was a good way for the people that may not know you or something like that to get to know you better. But it also showed me in a different light too, because all they see is reality TV reviews, because all the shit when you talk about stuff like Love and Hip Hop, that's ghetto as hell. Of course you're gonna think I'm just ignorant as hell. Or all the stuff that we see on the Neighborhood Talk, of course you're gonna think I'm ignorant as hell. But this is something different and I really enjoyed it. And like I said, we're gonna have to do something again. Talk about eras and stuff like that, certain eras that we loved and stuff like that. Like because I definitely, me and my friend Jamar always say Justice for the Human era, because we like that album, even though a lot of people don't.
It was one of my favorite songs ever. That was one of my songs when I was in my depressed phase. I used to play the mess out of True. So
I love, and I know a lot of people don't like Long Distance, but I love that song
I
too.
thought that was
I
it would have
love
worked
Long
years earlier, but whatever.
Yeah. I love it. I love long distance. But anyways, you guys, this was another episode of One on One. This time it was with Calvin Michaels. The next time we do one on one will be in 2 weeks, and the next person that would be on one on one is OG Triple OG Ashley Miller, who's also a reality TV connoisseur like myself. She will be on here for the next one-on-one. We already talked. I got to make her thumbnail and all that after this is over. Thank you once again, Calvin, for doing this with me. Like I said, I will be reaching out to you pretty soon for a video where we just talk about music and nothing but music. Because like I said, that's what I want to do.
All right, no problem. Thanks for having me.
All right, you guys. And that was it, you guys. I'll see you on the next one. Good night.